Yulia here. Thank you so much for joining today. And we have a very interesting guest who is very much in the know on absolutely everything that's happening in the retail industry. His name is Craig Patterson, and he is editor-in-chief of the most popular retail publication in Canada. And we're going to talk today about some of the innovation that is taking place across the retail space, and some of the things to look out for, and just have a general conversation of some of the lessons learned from different organizations. So, Craig, it's really great to see you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll dive right in. So the very first question I have for you is, can you please give a few examples of some of the very interesting innovations that you see that retailers are doing? And I'll give you an example. So there is a gym in Toronto that is a cycling gym, and they've rented out their bicycles to their members so they can continue doing at-home online classes, and those bikes are continuously working. If you have any examples like that with the retailers, that would be really great to hear.
Yes, absolutely. It's really interesting what we're seeing in the retail industry right now. We've had retailers pivoting their strategy as well as doing things to be able to still engage with the consumer while maintaining a physical distancing, which can be quite a challenge. So traditionally, most retail sales have been done in physical store locations. That in many cases was impossible, except for retailers that were deemed by governments to be a necessity. So what we have seen now is retailers, for example, adopting such things as click and collect, but at a much bigger scale in terms of consumers being able to pick up purchases that they bought online at the storefront, or alternatively being able to have them delivered. In some cases, because some retailers weren't open. We've seen some retailers pivoting their strategies. I was surprised how many men's suit makers, like say custom suit makers, have, or just selling them like Harry Rosen, have pivoted to making face masks. I found that to be quite interesting because they were still able to do this. In some cases, most cases, money was going to charity, but this is also being used as a revenue source for these retailers as well, because they were able to generate fairly substantial income from just generally, making face masks. But now that we're seeing stores opening, we are seeing retailers coming back, and they're adopting new technologies. Contactless payment, covers for pin pads, things which will convince the consumer that there's a level of sanitization there that wasn't there before. Another thing that I'm noticing, which has really surprised me during this time, you wouldn't think that people would be opening new businesses, but we're seeing new brands coming down the pipeline, be it fashion or otherwise. They are boldly moving forward. They've started as digitally native brands, which means that they started online, looking to eventually get into a physical presence at retail, be it pop-up or otherwise. But they're actually forming, and they have strategies which could affect some, I guess, existing retailers in terms of they may be able to gain market share, because I see them as being, very exciting and new brands that have new ideas and strategies. One brand that's interesting is Duair. It's based out of Vancouver. What they've done is they've pivoted their business model to a demand-based supply, if you can say that. So they go to their consumers and say, would you like this? And they basically look at the number of consumers that might want, say, a style of pants that they would sell, or jeans. And then from there, they create that production. So they've really looked at their business model, and rather than just, trying to predict demand or create a lot of product, now they're able to determine basically what that demand is going to be, and they address that. So it's an interesting time. A lot of retailers and brands have had to look at their business models and determine what they can do to be viable at this time. And like you mentioned, one of our employees is Orange Theory, another fitness concept. What Orange Theory has done is they've shifted to classes at home, because people can't go into the actual physical spaces, and we're not sure when these fitness concepts will be able to reopen again, and whether or not, say, they would need plexiglass barriers between people if they're on a treadmill or otherwise. And speaking of plexiglass, I mean, that's another innovation we're seeing within stores that are open already, be it grocery, pharmacy, Dollarama. Hopefully Dollarama got some plexiglass finally. They were using cellophane on their stores in terms of at the cash desk. But we're seeing retailers that have physical spaces also innovating by creating, levels of protection between, staff within the store as well, between the staff and the consumer essentially.
And have you seen any very creative approaches to that distancing measures that the retailers implemented? Something interesting. I mean, everybody has the shields now at the cash, but was there anything maybe that stood out that you've seen there? It's like, oh, that's interesting.
Well, what I found interesting is in some cases stores are now starting to create almost a pathway, kind of like in an IKEA store. You kind of follow in one direction. You say, I'm going here, I go to this room, I go to this room. Well, now some stores are actually saying this aisle, you go this way, and this one, you go this way. They're trying to make it so that people aren't really bumping into each other in stores. This is not certainly universal in terms of, I've just been in some stores over the past couple of days that don't have that, but that is one thing we're seeing. A somewhat unified signage protocol has been implemented where they're encouraging people to, physically distance within physical retail spaces. They'll have markers on the floor, other signs elsewhere as well. And again, it's really a way to, get consumers to sort of stay apart. I mean, they're saying, be 6 to 7 feet apart is the ideal. Whether or not that actually stops the illness is another story. Now we're starting to see retailers mandate that face masks be worn in stores, which is interesting. So that means that we're really going to have to increase our supply of masks because not everyone has them. And in some provinces, it can actually be quite challenging to get face masks. So in Ontario, I haven't found it so bad where I'm located, but I know in British Columbia, it's been far more of a challenge.
And do you think people are actually going to follow the new path in the store? In the grocery store, I can see how it's potentially possible to follow, but I also been in the Whole Foods the other day and I can see the directions in the store, but I also observed people, and the majority of people, they actually don't follow the path and they just kind of wander off on their own. How effective do you think those measures actually going to be?
That's a whole nother story. I mean, consumer behavior has us just going everywhere. So I would hope that they would be followed, but I just know for myself, I mean, when I thought about it, I thought, well, maybe I'll just, if no one's down that aisle, maybe I'll cheat. You know what I mean? Like I need to go that way. We as humans tend to rebel against rules to a degree, not always, but in some cases. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happens here as well. I mean, it is just human nature. I mean, in some respects, people will want to rebel a little bit, but at the same time, I would hope that people would, hopefully try to follow this just for the betterment of society. But, there's certain segments of society that is going to adhere to certain, protocols that have been set out. And there are some that will ignore it. And that's just reality, unfortunately. So.
Okay, so we talked about the product innovation and the supply chain process innovation. Let's talk a little bit about the technology innovation. Have you seen any new emerging technologies, or maybe current companies pivoting, or maybe some need for some brand new technology, something in terms of the retail tech? What?
Yeah, well, there's one that I'm thinking of that's really interesting. There's a company called Predict Medics. It was recently launched on the Canadian Securities Exchange. And what they're doing is they've got artificial intelligence technology, and it's able to do a few different things. It can be integrated with CCTV camera systems, say within stores or within shopping centers. They're able to determine such things as, are people spaced out far enough? Is there too much crowding? I mean, we won't include, say, family members that are shopping together or roommates or whatever, but if there's either a bottleneck or if there's an issue around people being too close together. The same technology can be used to determine if, say, people are wearing face masks within a space. And like I mentioned, some retailers are mandating that consumers wear face masks in stores. I think TNT, the grocery chain, and a few others are already saying, if you come into this space, you must wear a face mask. And this is something that some health authorities have said is a very good idea to stop transmission, whether or not someone, could get COVID-19 or someone already has it, to stop them from passing it on to someone else. So this technology, again, is looking to be implemented in stores. I know it's being beta tested already at Summerhill Market in Toronto. So it's not just a concept that's, pie in the sky. It's actually being implemented. This technology on top of that, which is really interesting, is it's able to detect signs of COVID-19. So that is a really big one, because if you think about it, now, I mean, there could be privacy issues, but this can be, alleviated through, certain protocols. They're able to say, this person appears to be exhibiting symptoms which could be consistent with a viral illness. It could be COVID-19. This is something that, would have to be looked at in that respect. And from there, technologies like this are you know, well, I think artificial technology is going to change the world to a degree. I think that we're going to be seeing quite a few innovations in that area, and that can include everything from, say, food spoilage and contamination to healthcare protocols. So I think, you know, that to me is one of the most exciting innovations I've seen. Other ones that I've seen, for example, again, if you think about, say, the shopping center, and they have a large screen where you want to, say, find a store. Where's the Old Navy store? Well, we're seeing another company now, Maple Leaf Displays. I believe they're bringing in this technology, which includes a hand sanitizer device. So hand sanitizing is going to be, I think, a big thing that we're going to see. In the case of Holt Renfrew stores, when you walk into a Holt Renfrew store, you must use the hand sanitizer. So what we're seeing now is they've got this device. It can tell whoever needs to refill it that it needs to be refilled. But what they have on top of that is a screen where you can use your voice to say, where is the Old Navy store? And this will tell you where to go on that. On top of that, they're looking at having heat sensors, again, to determine whether or not there might be a possibility that a person may have COVID-19 or I guess another illness as well. Artificial intelligence could be integrated into that. I'm not aware of that currently being the case with that particular device that I'm talking about. Another one as well, same company is bringing in UV sanitization lights. So they found that UV light to a certain degree, and I'm not a expert in this area, but there's UV light out there that they're using in places like hospitals already. I've seen this myself in a hospital, some fitness centers, kitchens within restaurants, and prisons, interestingly enough, that is able to kill bacteria and viruses. So we're going to be seeing this technology being used more in retail stores and really anywhere where people are that they want to have sanitized. So again, this is another innovation within the physical space that we're seeing that I think will be implemented far and wide. And ultimately, I think new wealth is going to be created out of this. I mean, some people will lose, some wealth with COVID-19, and some will innovate and gain it. So there are certainly opportunities out there that we found that people are, looking at and capitalizing on, essentially.
What types of opportunities would you think those be?
Well, right now it would be around health and safety, as well as really anything to, say, satisfy the consumer. Again, in the realm of artificial intelligence, one thing that I think is happening, well, not just me, but I think is happening within the industry is a rapid acceleration of the technological innovations that we were already seeing happening within the industry. For example, even just the use of cash. A lot of retailers right now are saying, well, we don't want to handle cash. We only want this to be done by card. Again, contactless, tap payments. That's not a new thing, obviously, but it's certainly something that we're seeing more of. Again, with other, tech innovation within the retail industry, I think we're going to be seeing far more changes. They're going to be rapid. I mean, everything we're going to see is going to be more rapid, be it technological adoption, an increase in e-commerce. So we'll see more online shopping, more curbside pickup, click and collect, delivery. I mean, delivery is expensive, but people still love it. I think I have a package waiting downstairs for me right now from Amazon. Sorry, everybody, but I ordered from Amazon. And just, another acceleration, unfortunately, is those retail chains that may have been struggling before this, and there were quite a few of them. Some won't survive, and that really goes to cash flow at a time when many stores had to close for about a 2-month time period or more, just depending on what type of retailer it was, or a restaurant, hair salon, whatever that might be, fitness concept too.
Are there any particular brands that you think about that are in a bigger trouble than others?
Yes, I mean, Reitman's just announced that it is filing for creditor protection. And, it's interesting, and I don't want to name too many names, but they're out there. Some of the biggest companies in the country that you can think of that are Loblaws or, Shoppers Drug Mart are looking at potential bankruptcy filing. Part of it is to get out of, say, store locations that they have. It can be hard in Canada for a retailer to cut its store count without some sort of a filing. It's a bit different in the United States, but in Canada, we are seeing, I'm wondering honestly about the Hudson Bay Company, what they're going to do. I do think that they are going to survive this and still be a retailer in the future, but there may be a situation where they look to have their store count reduced and make other cuts by some sort of situation that could involve a filing. Licenza, I'm not sure what the future of that company is going to be. There's a few others out there that we can think of. I mean, Aldo Shoes already, had filed for bankruptcy protection and plans to close almost half of its stores, as well as streamline its operations. So I think that, Aldo will be around in the future. Very iconic brand based out of Montreal, known for its shoes and its accessories, I guess now as well. But, again, that company had been struggling financially before COVID-19, and this really accelerated what they were planning on doing in terms of making changes to the business model.
Okay, thank you. So another question, do you think the impulse shopping as we know it is going to be dead?
Well, as human beings, we are often impulsive. So the question is, I guess, would impulse shopping be dead at, say, in a physical space? Well, I think we would see less of it. The search and find in a physical space, it's the thrill of the hunt in some cases. People are looking around. I'm not sure from a consumer comfort standpoint if people are going to want to wander around and browse as much as they did. And again, this might just be only for a few months. But nevertheless, if you think about it, right now going into a store, say you're wearing a face mask as I do, there's a bit of a level of anxiety there. And I know for myself, I still will go around a Shoppers Drug Mart because, at the time of this recording, non-essential stores were not really open yet in Ontario. But there's a certain level of comfort that comes with shopping in a retail space that I don't think is there right now. So I think definitely we would see less in the area of impulse buys. But nevertheless, with Shoppers Drug Mart, I think I made 10 impulse buys on Sunday when I was in a store. So they still exist. But I think that a lot of that impulse buy is going to be moving online. So if a website has been optimized essentially where it's something that the consumer is going to be looking through for a while, they may find something exciting and interesting that they may want to buy. And I'm just thinking myself as a consumer, I was on the Zara website and I was like, oh, I love those shoes and they're on sale. We're going to see a lot of sales coming up here in the next little while. So I'm a bit excited about that. I mean, it's not the best news for retailers because it's going to hit their margins, but with websites, if you're scrolling through them, I think this is almost going to be the new level of discovery for at least the time being, where if you're able to, sit at home or sit, in your backyard or something and look at what's available online, that impulse shopping, could be something that would be of assistance to retailers. And ultimately, humans like to find new things and discover them and often buy them if they can afford them. So but at the same time, there's a level of comfort that needs to be there. And I'm not sure if that level of comfort in a physical space is going to be there quite the same, especially for fashion purchases, because people are hopefully going to realize that when you try something on and you're like, I don't like this, the store is going to have to quarantine it for maybe 24 hours, 36 hours, just depending whatever their protocol is. They may have to steam the garment over 200 degrees to, kill any virus if it was ever on, say, a piece of clothing. It's just going to be a bit more of a challenging time to be a retailer, especially a physical retailer right now.
Which actually leads me to the next question. How do retailers actually lure customers back into their stores and really create a sense of an exciting experience as opposed to a potential threat due to the cleanliness and health and safety concerns?
Oh, yeah. I mean, what we're seeing with both retailers and landlords is they're implementing a few different things that are meant to alleviate concerns of the consumer, as well as to build a level of safety, or at least we would hope that would be the case. One of the interesting ones I found, I mean, I'm not sure how effective this would be, but as stores start reopening in the short term, we're seeing decreased store hours. In the case of some stores like Holt Renfrew in Toronto, I think they're going to be open from noon until 5 p.m. So that's only a 5-hour window to shop. I mean, I guess there's less chance of transmission. Hopefully the stores aren't becoming crowded because of the lower hours. I kind of doubt that would be the case depending on the retailer. But other things that we're seeing, again, are increased sanitization with stores. The stores are being cleaned regularly. Dressing rooms, if a store has those, some may be either locked down. There would be sanitization between uses for these dressing rooms, as an example. Again, quarantining of clothing if a retailer has clothing for a time period after a person's tried it on, after someone, say, returned something to a store. This is certainly something that we're going to see in terms of retailers having to grapple with that. hand sanitization, people wearing masks in the stores, retailers providing those things to the consumer as well as to their staff is something that we're going to be seeing. What else? Again, cleaning protocols and general, I guess, sort of a wayfinding and mandating a distancing between parties that are within the store. In some cases, if you think about, say, a Sephora or a makeup counter in a store like Hudson's Bay, before that, if you went into a store, you could try on a lipstick, you could do different things with that. That is changing. I believe Sephora opens May 29th across Canada. I think that's the plan. That hasn't been announced in the press, but of course I get information beforehand. That type of testing won't be in existence. I have no idea if it'll ever come back, to be honest. But again, a big change around that in the beauty industry. So really, retailers are trying to create a level of comfort for consumers as they come back into physical spaces, because again, physical spaces do make up the bulk of retail sales in Canada, and I'm not sure if that will change too much in the future. We are still creatures of habit to a degree, but we are, increasingly forming habits around online shopping at the same time, which could stick around forever.
And what are the percentages of online shopping in Canada versus online shopping in the US, just out of curiosity?
Yeah. Out of, as a general percentage, with, Retail Council Canada, I do some work with them. We said that before COVID-19, of course, about 10% of retail sales were done online and about 90% were done in physical stores. So I suspect that number will change. It could be, even in a month, it could be 20% e-commerce or online shopping and 80% in stores. That remains to be seen. It could even be a little bit more in terms of online shopping as stores start to reopen in the short term. But it really remains to be seen. I mean, I think that we will be seeing a substantial boost in online shopping in Canada over the next 2 years and beyond. And this was a trend, again, that we were seeing already. It's just being accelerated with COVID-19. Again, a lot of the changes and a lot of the innovations that we were seeing and trends are just going to be moved fast forward. So it is interesting because it's not all negative to a degree.
What are some of those core trends that you think need to be accelerated? Absolutely.
Again, I mean, it's the online shopping, it's payment systems, the speed of processing, the implementation of artificial intelligence, chatbots within websites, the movement towards more home delivery, various things that we were seeing along the lines of a progression that retailers were making to their operations. I'm thinking now, even workplaces moving. In some cases, people are going to be wanting to work from home, or we may see call centers or customer service in some respects that was already virtual, actually moving into people's homes, where people will be working from home more, which I think will create quite an interesting dynamic with society, especially if a person has kids at home and they're not at school or daycare or something. But really, and some of the progression that we were seeing was stuff that really wasn't even in the public eye, which is interesting. A lot of tech companies were working with retailers to try to streamline processes, and I think we'll be seeing that happening a little bit faster probably a lot faster than we would have seen otherwise. So it's going to be some really interesting times.
Yeah, and process streamlining, especially because most companies do operate with a reduced headcount, so they have to adjust the process for that and juggle the sales that way. So I think we're probably at our time mark. So I thank you so much for joining today, and it's really great to see you, and I hope you stay well and safe, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on this segment, and stay safe as well.
Thank you very much.